Welcome to Dumb Guys. It's that time of year again. It's time for the 2017 Fantasy Baseball Sleepers episode. And this year, we're not going to stop our regularly scheduled programming. We're going to keep doing all the stuff you love, the movie reviews, the Does It Holds Up, the Brazilian food, all the funny stuff, in addition to doing these fantasy baseball episodes that we've been doing now for the past, this will be our third year. So, stay tuned for fantasy baseball, but also stay tuned for all of our regular programming. Here we go.
Dumb Guys.
Heath, give us a breakdown of how we're going to judge our sleeper.
So typically for me, I have a couple different types of sleepers. One is, say, like around third, fourth round and down, guys that I believe could play like a first or second rounder. So they'll typically be pretty fairly big names, but they may have a little bit of an injury risk, a down year the year before, or they haven't broken out yet and they're still really young, but you kind of believe they could have that big year this year.
Right.
Then I have another tier of sleepers, which are like almost like the no risk ones, where you're drafting them to be on your bench, and they
Round
could
20.
Yeah, and they could potentially be an all-star or something like that, or have their first great year.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Why don't you get us started off?
Okay, so the first of my guys that I think could play like a first rounder is Ryan Braun. I think the reason I have him here is people forget about him. They forget how good he was a couple years ago. They forget that the last 2 years he's been awfully good as well.
Mm-hmm. He had a great season last year.
Yeah, 900 OPS, 30 home runs, I believe 14, 16 stolen bases, something like that.
Yep.
And what it is I think that potentially if you're watching your draft and people could forget about him and let him just kind of fall and fall and fall to where he might be projected to go in a certain round, but I think he could actually go like a round below that, which I believe he's around projected third, fourth round.
Third or fourth round. I think he's going. I think ESPN has him projected in the fourth round. I think that Braun is past his prime. He's not juicing anymore. But I would say if he goes to the fifth round, he is only 30 years old, so he's worth taking.
Yeah.
Well, the first guy I've got on my list is Giancarlo Stanton, and I think he's actually fairly similar to Ryan Braun. Mm-hmm. What he brings is some injury risk. He has always been projected to have great seasons. The Marlins gave him a monster contract,
Yes.
And he always falls short because he gets hurt. He doesn't play the whole season. Whatever happens. But he is projected to hit 41 home runs this season, and he's dropping all the way down to, I think, the fourth or fifth round. Mm-hmm. And so if he's anywhere around there, I think he's a bargain.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't think he's had his best year yet. I had him the year he hit 37 home runs and was the runner-up for MVP, mm-hmm. but he got hit in the face by a line drive, and he killed me in the playoffs.
Yep.
I had him last year as well. He was my first-round pick, and I had the same thought, like he's going to finally have that 45 home run season. But the concern I have is the little bit he did play, he wasn't making great contact. He's only hitting like 240. And so hopefully that's not permanent. Hopefully that's just kind of injury related and he'll get back on track this year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. I've got Cargo listed here. Now, he's a shaky pick. Like he's only have him if just everyone you're drafting against forgets about him and he falls like a couple rounds lower than what he's projected to do. Because last year he had a decent year. Mm-hmm. The year before that he hit 40 home runs, but his stolen bases are completely gone. Yeah. He went from being like 20 year to like 0 or 2.
Right.
So that's completely gone. And he is an injury risk, but he's playing in Colorado. He's a really good talent. And you're going to get somewhere between 30 to 40 home runs out of him if he stays healthy. And that could potentially, be as good as the guy you pick in the first round.
Right. He could be, and I agree with everything you just said, except for the only knock against him is that guys like Stanton, guys like Braun are all dropping a round or two after him. And so I wouldn't take Cargo where he's projected to go, but I would consider him if he falls with Braun and Stanton back into the third, fourth, fifth rounds.
Yeah, definitely.
My next guy is Nelson Cruz. Mm-hmm. So this is a guy who I didn't believe it when he hit 40 home runs 3 years ago. I didn't believe it when he hit 40 home runs 2 years ago. I didn't believe it when he hit 40 home runs last year. at some point it's time for me to jump on this bandwagon. And I think this year is the year. So I would take him where he's fallen, which I think, again, is in the fourth, fifth, sixth round. He might even be the sixth round.
Yeah, and so I listed him here as well. Like, we independently came up with our lists, and we had a few guys that we both came up with the same one. I had Cruz as well. He was on my team last year. And we both kind of mentioned him in our video last year. You should go back and look at that to see how right we were.
Because I think I had him flopping.
Yeah, that we both kind of said, like, he can't do it again.
Yeah.
But in the draft, I think he fell like 2 rounds lower than he was projected.
I think he did.
And then when I got to that, it's like I can't pass him up. And then he ended up being one of my best hitters.
Yeah. Yeah, 40 home runs 3 years in a row. You cannot deny that now. I got to stop denying it now.
Yeah, well, he had more RBIs last year than he had in a while. I think the year before that, he had like 42 home runs, but only about 90-something RBIs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was around 110, 106 to 110, somewhere in there last year.
Yeah.
All right, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
So now, next I've got JD Martinez. And this is a guy that, kind of like Stan, I don't think he's had his best year yet. One reason I like him is everyone in Detroit is really high on him. I was watching a spring training game on the Tigers broadcast, and the broadcasters were going like, how many home runs do you think he'll hit? And they said 40 at least. They said he's got just endless potential. He'll put out a nice, easy swing and hit a home run opposite field to right field, no problem.
Right.
And all along minors, everywhere he's hit. Even in his minor league rehab where he's injured last year, he hit well. Mm-hmm. He just never seems to miss a beat. There's a possibility there could be trade drama going around him, and you never know how that could affect him. But I think he's got that type of ceiling of being like an MVP next year. And he's falling far enough down to where it's worth taking the risk to where even if he has a year like he did last year, to where he missed some time with injury, there's like 2 months where he's the best hitter on my team and had like 1,000 OPS for a couple months straight while he was healthy.
Well, he definitely has talent. Mm-hmm. We've seen production from him in the past, and I like him a lot. He's still young. I think he's 27 to 29. I can't remember exactly.
I think he's like 29-ish.
So he's definitely right there in his prime. The one thing that I noticed when I was looking at JD Martinez is that Justin Upton, also on Detroit, was projected to do about almost exactly the same stats. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was almost, uncanny how exact their stats were projected to be. And you're going to hear me say projections a lot because I really I was looking at the Fangraph projections. But they were very close, and Justin Upton is dropping 3 rounds below JD Martinez. So that had me thinking that maybe I would go with Justin Upton in round 5 instead of taking JD Martinez in round 3.
That's a good point. I think you're right with the JD Martinez that he's more consistent than JD, or Justin Upton's been more consistent than JD Martinez, as like he has the same year every year. He's 20 to somewhere between 20 and 30 home runs, about 10 stolen bases, kind of a low batting average.
Right.
But I think JD Martinez has that ceiling of like 320, 40 home runs, but he could be injured and do nothing for you.
He's definitely got a possibility there. Yeah. So, my next guy on my list was Tommy Joseph. This is a guy that I've never heard of. I happened to come across him in the projections. They had him hitting 29 home runs last year. And I liked that number, considering the fact that he's not even rated on the ESPN 250 list. That basically means he's a free pickup. You can get him as your very last pick, stick him on your bench, and if he hits 29 home runs as your very last pick, that to me is what you call a sleeper.
Definitely. And I was kind of laughing when he showed this because it's the guy the Giants traded for Hunter Pence. And so it's the Giants chose not to hold on to him. Now he's hitting well. He was a catcher when they got rid of him. And when you initially said his name, it's like, oh, shoot, is he still a catcher? And I saw he's been moved to first base.
If he was a catcher projected to do 29 home runs, I think he'd be ranked.
Yeah, he'd be ranked pretty high. But definitely, if you can get that 20-plus home runs and he's low enough to where you may put him in his flex spot, or you don't even have to put him in.
Right.
If he's not doing well. So I think that is a good kind of a pick that people will forget about, and kind of just a name to throw out there because I think the Phillies are just not a very publicized team, and that's why I think that's similar to Ryan Braun. You just don't hear about the Brewers that much, and so those guys on those teams that aren't talked about on SportsCenter stuff as much will kind of go under people's radar.
Absolutely.
Kind of like Maikel Franco on the Phillies as well.
Right.
He's another guy that like people forget about. He's a good player, but he's just on a team you don't hear about that much.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so next I've got Will Myers. And this is the same thing. He was on the Padres. You don't hear about the Padres that much. He was traded from the Rays, I believe, And I did not realize he hit 27 home runs and had 27 steals.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how often do you get a guy with that? Like, I think I was reading an article last year about how 30 players just dropping off, and you're not seeing the home runs and stolen bases out of the same player anymore.
Right.
As much. And this is a guy you totally forgot about. He played first base last year. I know he's got a history of outfield, so maybe he'll have some eligibility in outfield and first base. But I think a guy like McCutcheon, he's got 27 home runs. Maybe he doesn't even have the 27 stolen base thing anymore, and he's going to go much higher than Will Myers.
Yeah.
And I think Will Myers is a steal if he could do it again this year.
Where do you remember where he was projected to go?
Oh, gosh. I listed mine in order of kind of where I found them, not as far as the projection, but I think it was pretty far down there. It was like 6th, 7th round around there.
Well, I don't know where he was going either, but I did like the combination for Will Myers of power and stolen bases at first base.
Yeah.
So if he's a first baseman and he's giving you the power and the stolen bases, I think that's a bonus for your lineup. So, okay, my next guy is a guy whose name I don't know how to pronounce. It's Rogned Odor.
I think I've heard Rokuned Odor.
Rokuned?
I don't know. I don't know if that pronounced. I was watching on TV, and I don't know if that guy even said it right.
Yeah. Well, this is a guy, I think he's a second baseman.
Yeah.
He's a second baseman. He's projected to hit 27 home runs next year. I think he had a great year last year. He hit 33 home runs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Pop at second base.
Yeah, I mean, at second base, you're getting 25 to 35 home runs. That's definitely a bonus. He's going pretty early, but he's still going later to some of the big-time second basemen like Altuve, and there's a couple other guys who are going well before he is. So to wait for him, to me, over spending a first-round or second-round pick is a sleeper.
And I think out of the second base pool, there's guys in second base like Daniel Murphy, the guy that got, Segura.
Yeah.
Those guys kind of almost had fluke years, like years that they've never had before. There's no evidence that they'll have that kind of a year again. And I think it might be good to pass on those guys and wait for a guy like this Odor.
Yeah.
Because you make it the same amount of production without wasting a really high pick on a guy that may bust this year. And I think some of those second basemen will make my bust list, so I would wait on second base for a guy like this Odor.
And stay tuned because we will be doing a bust video as well.
Yes,
so you'll get those coming up.
All right, so where did I leave off? I think I'm on Eric Hosmer. And this is a guy that I've been waiting for years to have the year that everyone's been waiting for him to have.
Yeah, he was hyped.
He was hyped. He was a number 3 overall pick in his draft. He went through the minors very quickly. It feels like he's been around forever, but he's only 26 years old. And so I think we just have not seen the best year out of him yet. He's one of those guys that he could do anything. He could hit home runs, he could steal bases, hit for average. It just, will he ever put that all together? And I kind of think that this might be the year. Last year he had 25 home runs and over 100 RBIs. He's had 15 plus steals in the past. He's hit close to 300 in the past. He's got to have that year of putting it all together. And this year's a contract year for him. He's a free agent after 2018. The Royals have already talked about trading him because they know they probably can't re-sign him. And so I think he'll be playing for that $100 million contract this year.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I did notice about him, though, my only problem is that he did only hit 25 home runs. I think that's the most home runs he's hit in a season. And for a first baseman, I like to get a little more power out of my first baseman. Yeah. So that would be my only knock against him. Okay, my next sleeper is Marcus, is it Semien?
I think it's Semien.
And I know you had him on your list as well.
Yes.
And this is going into the fact that he's a shortstop. And I believe he's at the bottom of the rankings. He's all the way 207 on ESPN rankings. Yes. That's basically a 20th round pick. He is a shortstop who's projected to hit over 20 home runs. I just think in a shallow position like shortstop, to have a guy fall that deep with that kind of power playing shortstop, you gotta get him, and that means that you don't have to waste your high picks on those other guys, who probably are going to perform just as well.
Yes, and I think if you've got like a target like this at shortstop, you don't have to go after that Correa super early.
Right.
You can go after like a big time third baseman like a Chris Bryant instead, and get that type of production, and then grab up Semien later.
That's right. It's all about getting value out of the position and out of the out of the round.
Yeah, and say like if there wasn't guys like this Semien, and there's actually quite a few shortstops that I think will fall. There's also Addison Russell on the Cubs, a couple Brandon Crawford on the Giants that you'll get something out of if you wait on shortstop.
Yeah.
So I think this might be the year to do that. Wait on shortstop, to take one of those for sure MVP quality type guys in your first and second round rather than like a shortstop.
And I like the fact if this guy's ranked, for the 20th round, I like taking him maybe in the 15th round. I get him 5 rounds before anybody else is even looking at him, but I get him. So.
Yeah, and say like I had that same strategy with Maikel Franco last year. I took him early, but it made it so I could wait on third base.
Yeah, right.
So it's a sleeper that gives you ability to pick.
Be flexible early.
Be flexible in the first and second round. Yes. Yeah. All right, it's my turn, I believe. And a guy I've got listed here is somebody you may not be thinking of at all, and maybe your very last pick of the draft. And if you don't take him, you may not go to draft it at all, but it's Matt Duffy. So this guy, he was traded from the Giants to the Rays, and he's got that 15 home run, 20 steal potential, and he'll probably be a super utility. He'll probably play third, short, second, and sit on your bench and be there if your guy like Semien gets hurt.
So a lot of flexibility.
Position. Shortstop, second base is usually shallow, and if you have a guy like this on the bench and one of those guys gets hurt, which typically happens at some point or another, you can slide this guy right in, give you some stolen bases, the occasional home run, and you won't lose that week because your typical shortstop, second baseman got hurt.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a low risk, wait till the end of the draft, grab him type thing.
And that's exactly what I have him as, too. I wasn't extremely impressed when I looked at his stats. I wasn't extremely impressed when I looked at his projections. But he is a guy that gives you flexibility. He's a freebie at the end of the draft. You put him on your bench, and you got him just in case you need him.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on to my next guy. And I've got him as number 7, but there's no order here. These are just guys. I put them on my list. And I feel pretty good about this guy. I'm calling him a sleeper, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be sleeping on him. But, I'm going to throw him out there anyways, and it's Gary Sanchez. He is projected to be the number 3 hitter in the Yankees lineup. And last year, from August on, he hit, 20-something home runs. He just killed it. He killed it. He was projected to hit like 50 home runs through a full season. That's how much he was doing. So I expect this guy to come off. He's projected to go in the 11th round, according to ESPN. If you pick him up a couple rounds earlier, he's a steal, I think. Once you get to like the 8th and 9th round, you're pretty much digging anyways.
You are, and if you think a guy could have a good year out of that pool, then why not grab him up?
Yeah, and he's a catcher, and so boom.
I think catcher is the shallowest position this year.
But catcher is always shallow. He's young, so I think he's not going to be hurt. Like catchers are, likely to. Yeah. It's likely to get to happen, and I think because he's such a prominent hitter, the Yankees might even use him in a DH situation.
Yeah, could be. The only reservation I'd have about Gary Sanchez is his swing and miss rate, and it makes me worry that in the majors they'll find a hole in his swing. He'll have to kind of go through that sophomore slump type thing, to where he readjusts, has to hit that pitch that's his weakness. So you just don't know if that will happen to him. But I mean, at the same time, a disappointment would be like 220 or 25 home runs,
right?
Which would still be decent for catcher.
I agree. I agree.
But that's the only worry I'd have about him.
Right. Yep.
All right. So where are we? It's my turn.
It's your turn.
I got Jason Hayward next. Now, he was a big letdown for the Cubs last year after paying him a lot of money.
Big time.
And I think he probably hurt some people's feelings that had him on their fantasy teams.
Wait, was it you?
No, I didn't have him last year. But I've had him like 3 times in the past.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those guys, kind of like Eric Hosmer, like hugely talented, and when is he going to have that big year that everyone expects him to have?
Yeah.
He was great defensively still won a Gold Glove, but that doesn't mean anything in fantasy baseball.
It doesn't mean a damn thing.
No.
His WAR, which has been really high year over year, means nothing.
Yeah. Yes. And so his batting average fell all the way to about 230. In the postseason, they started playing other people and just using him as a defensive replacement. But that means that he's going to fall all the way to being on your bench now. And so why not grab him up, stick him on your bench, and see if he has a year like he did the year before when he was on the Cardinals, when he stole over 20 bases, he had a few home runs, and he hit close to 300. Yeah. If he does that again from a bench player, there's some value there, and he's kind of a sleeper.
I absolutely agree. I was actually surprised when I looked at his stats, how bad last year was compared to all of his previous years. If he bounces back and has one of his normal years, he is going to be a value considering how far he's dropping in the draft.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so I am gonna join your Kansas City guy. The guy next on my list is Mike Moustakas.
Yeah.
And I think this is another guy who's been hyped, but he's a little underrated.
Yeah.
Playing for Kansas City, you don't hear about him a lot. Another guy who's projected to go way late in the rounds, around the 20th round. I think he's a first. Is he a first baseman? Third baseman. Third baseman.
Yeah.
So he's a third baseman. He's probably going to hit 25 home runs. I think this guy's a steal. In the 20th round. When you're just picking guys to fill your bench.
What's funny is we mentioned both Hosmer and Moustakas, and I just saw an article today that the Royals are looking to trade one or both of them.
That's interesting.
Because they're both going to be free agents in the year, and they know they can't afford them.
Right, so they're both playing for contracts.
Yeah, they're both playing for contracts this year. And Moustakas was a second overall pick.
Yeah.
And so they've always had talent. They've always been thought of as having talent. If they have a healthy year playing for a new contract, I mean, what can motivate people more than I might be rewarded with a $100 million contract
exactly.
if I have a good year?
Yeah. Yeah, two guys with talent that could really pull it off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, where are we? Now, did we skip Carl Schwarber?
We did.
We did because we both looked at him on our same list and kind of skipped him.
We did.
Yes.
And I was planning to bring him back up, but go ahead. You could start with Kyle Schwarber.
So Schwarber is a guy that I saw him pinch hit and hit a double. Or no, he's just got inserted into a game in the World Series after not playing for months, hits a double.
Yeah.
And it was just obvious this guy can hit. He's going to be on the Cubs, which they have a good hitting ballpark. They have a good lineup. I mean, he's going to be hitting with guys like Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo.
Yep.
And there's going to be guys on base. There's going to be guys driving him in. I think he could potentially hit 30 home runs or so, no problem. And he's fallen quite a ways down there just because he's injured for a long time last year.
Yeah.
And also he's very young, and we haven't seen him hit 30 home runs yet.
So he's falling down to around the 7th or 8th round. He's projected to hit 27 home runs. I think he would be a nice grab.
Yeah.
He used to be a catcher, but I think he's going to be playing the outfield, so there's not that injury risk.
Yeah.
I think he's somebody who you could pick up that people are probably going to be hesitant to get because of the injury, so you can swoop him up where people are letting him drop.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so the next guy on my list is another Yankee prospect. They've been expecting big things from him. He hasn't necessarily produced, but there's a possibility he can break out, and he's basically a freebie as well, and that's Aaron Judge. This is a big dude, right? And he's got a lot of pop, and he's expected to at least compete for the bottom of their lineup.
Yeah.
Fangraph has him projected to hit 22 home runs. So if he comes anywhere near that as a freebie, not even rated by ESPN, I think he's a grabber.
Yeah, and I think if you like that rookie that could potentially have that big year, hasn't shown it yet, the concerns I have with him are similar to Sanchez. The guy's 6'7". He struck out more than once per game in the minors. I think he had a year of like 140 games, 144 strikeouts in the minors. So it's kind of hard to see him right away consistently hitting in the majors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that the major league pitching is going to find some holes in that big 6'7" swing.
Yeah. Well, and just like Sanchez, he's a Yankee, so he's on everybody's radar. And so the chances of you swooping him from under somebody is slim. But I throw him on there because, like I said, he's not rated, and it's a good possibility.
Well, also, if you're drafting him to be on your bench, what's the harm?
Exactly.
If he's terrible, he could be the guy that makes you watch the waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly. You drop him, and then you pick up a gem.
Yeah.
Week 2, week 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so it's back to my list, and I've got Yan Gomes right now on this list. And this is one, the reason I threw him on there is because of how shallow catcher is. And if you're going through the draft and everybody else is grabbed up, like Buster Posey, Gary Sanchez, Wilson Ramos, all those guys, and you're getting to the end of the draft, it's like, oh shoot, I don't have a catcher. This is the guy to look for, because I think he'll be there at the end of the draft. He's 2 years removed from winning the Silver Slugger at catcher. He had like a 270 average with 20 home runs. Then he's had a couple years since then of being hurt and not having full seasons.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you fall all the way down to the bottom, you're like, oh shoot, I don't have a catcher. This is kind of a guy you can grab. And he's a little bit of an injury risk, but I think overall the Indians will have a good offensive team because they made the World Series. They just picked up Edwin Encarnacion.
Right.
Michael Brantley was hurt last year, and he's going to be back.
Uh-huh.
And so if Jan Gomes is in there playing, you're going to get some production, I believe.
I think you might get production while he's playing. My concern is that he's going to be splitting time at catcher. He's going to be a part-time, maybe a 60% catcher for the Indians, sharing time with their other guy. But in a pinch, I think he's a good option. I think the only reason you picked him is because he's Brazilian.
Yes, not only Brazilian, but from Sao Paulo, from where my wife is from.
That's right.
Yes, so I got to throw that in there, make her
Little
happy.
bias.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to my next sleeper. This is the only pitcher on either of our lists, and it's Felix Hernandez. I mean, this guy was like a early rounds guy a couple years ago, second or third round for a pitcher. We know this guy's got talent. He's a Cy Young winner. He had a rough year last year, but a rough year was still, it was 3.50 ERA in the American League.
Yeah.
The only problem is he wasn't winning games, but Seattle is a good team now, and Seattle's expected to win games. So I think he'll win games. I think he'll bounce back a little bit. And considered where he's falling, which is in the 10th round, I think for a pitcher, he's a pretty good pickup as like your second, third, depending on how you do pitching, starter.
Yeah, and see, like, one reason I didn't have any pitchers here is because I typically draft pitching all sleepers. Like, I kind of wait on pitching a lot of times.
Right, yeah.
And so, like, maybe we'll have another video where I talk about some pitchers. But Felix Hernandez, I think, is a great pick, and it's a great pick to show that you're thinking long-term, because there's a few pitchers that kind of will have a good year, and then a couple years of just okay, and then come back. And I think Justin Verlander is another one like that.
Yeah.
And he just had a really good year, and people are going to be taking him very high.
So he might
And then
regress.
Yeah, and so he might regress. And I think Felix Hernandez is due to have his good year. If you look, it's like every second or third year, he has a great year of like leading the league in ERA, being winning or being second in Cy Young.
Yeah.
And this could be that year where he comes back and he's falling low enough to where even if he just has a year like last year, he's a great value.
Yeah. So I think because you did Schwarber, we got out of sync here. So I've got one more guy left and you're done. So
yes.
I'm going to go again. And I just actually added this guy to my list today because I saw you had 11. So I was like, I'm going to do 11.
Yeah.
And that is Eric Thames. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, Thames. This is a guy who has been playing in Korea for the last couple of years. And he's coming back to play in the majors. I think he hasn't played the majors since 2012. But the Brewers cut ties with Chris Carter, a guy who hit 41 home runs last year, so they can make room for Eric Thames to come in here. And when I looked at his projections, they had him projected to hit 31 home runs with an 865 OPS and 14 stolen bases. So this guy can steal bases. He's got power. The Brewers wanted him bad enough to drop a guy who hit 41 home runs. And I don't even think he was projected to go until like the 23rd or 24th round, according to ESPN. This guy would be a steal if he produced those kind of numbers from that position in the draft.
Yes, definitely. And like I think you brought up the comparison to Cecil Fielder.
Yeah.
That was like I was 12 years old, I think.
Yeah,
When,
I think it was 1980.
1990?
1990 he came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Cecil Fielder went to Japan, hit like 38 home runs in Japan, came back and hit 51 home runs in the majors.
Yeah.
So maybe this guy is that again. Somebody else that did a similar thing was Ryan Vogelsong. Went overseas, came back better.
Yep.
So maybe this is that guy, and it's no risk taking him where how far down he is.
Yeah.
And us mentioning it, the guys in our league is going to watch it, and we're not going to get him.
Yeah, right. They're going to snatch him up.
But
that's why we do this show, so that the people in our league have an opportunity to beat us.
Yeah, they do.
Which is tough to do.
It is, for sure. All right, so overall, I think these guys are the types of guys that can make you win your league because you get the obvious picks in your first and second round, but then you grab up some of these and they play like a first rounder, or they play like an all-star.
Value out of the bottom or the middle of the draft, while also getting value out of the beginning of the draft. You're basically spending your big money early for the guys you know are going to produce, and then you're spending just a little bit of money for guys who could produce just as much as those guys.
Yeah, and these guys, I think they really do round your team out. For example, last year I took Stanton in the first round, and then I took Yelich in the 15th, and Yelich had the higher OPS for the year.
Right.
And so it's just, and I ended up finishing third, and I could have totally failed because Stanton busted as my first round pick. But it's these types of guys that can save your team.
Yeah.
So good luck in your draft. I hope these sleepers help you out.
Absolutely, and stay tuned for some more fantasy baseball videos coming. Like we mentioned, we're going to do a bust video. We'll probably do a pitchers video or a pitcher sleepers video. And we'll continue doing videos until we get to the season, which is coming up soon, man. I mean, we're only 3 months away, I think.
Yeah, we are. And definitely put your comments below and tell us if you think we're right or not.
Yeah, let us know what you think about our picks. And if you got any sleepers or you got ideas, put those in the comments as well, because we need some tips that our competitors don't have.
Yes.
Because we're giving them all of our clues and all of our tips away. So,
we are.
Yeah.
All right.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
Yes, definitely.
Like it.
And share it all over the place.
Share it with everybody, all your friends, because, dude, I mean, we're dumb guys.
We are.
All right.
All right.
Dumb guys out.